All right, guys, as promised, this is going to be part one of a 7-part video series in which we're going to do a deep dive into what I mentioned in my weekend review is how to start a successful short-term rental management company. If you recall from the weekend review video, step one was market research and planning. Let's do a deep dive into that step one. Here's what I want you to do. If you're interested in this 7-part series, I highly recommend that A, you subscribe, and B, you hit that notification button so you can be alerted as to when the next video comes out. I'm gonna try to do one a week so that for the next 7 weeks, you're going to have this video. It's really going to be, I'm gonna try to make it as detailed as possible, but do me a favor, if within each series, if there's a question that you have after you watch the video, then ask it below, or better yet, buy me a coffee and let's have this discussion so that this can be a very good learning experience for you. If you're planning on starting a short-term rental company, there'll be no doubts as to what the steps you need to take to get this started. So the first thing is that market research, right? You really need to understand what your market is going to be. Within that market, you have to come up with 3 things, right? Your geographic scope, your seasonal variation, and then your micro-location analysis. So let's start with that geographic scope. Within that geographic scope, you have to figure out where within that scope you're going to be. Is your location going to be a tourist attraction? Is it a business attraction? Do you have access to auxiliary access to transportations like an international airport? Do you have tourist destinations or destinations in which people have a tendency to go to, like a sporting event? But the idea here is to figure out what's the scope geographically you want to be in so that you know, and we'll discuss the rest as to why that's important, but that's going to be very important as to doing that analysis and understanding what the dynamics of your local market is. Next, you need to figure out, is it a seasonal market, right? Analysis of seasonal trends in tourism, business travel, so that you can anticipate some of the fluctuations that happens within the short-term rental management business, especially if you're going to be focusing on tourism. Then that micro-location analysis, that's where you're going to figure out, within that geographic, what specific neighborhood or district you want to be in so that you can identify some high demand pockets or areas within that area. Once you have that, now we got to analyze and target our audience. Who's going to be our avatar? And the way I like to do that is to identify a demographic profile for my geographic area, right? For the type of people that visit my geographic area. Within this, you got to gather data in terms of age, income, occupation, family status, etc., so that you can determine what your demographic profile is going to be. Then it's the psychographic insights within that area. So what's the motivation? What are the interests? What are the preferences of my target audience? You're going to need to know that so that when you do your marketing, you can market to this specific group, right? Within this, you got to know what are the travel preferences, lifestyle choices, the aspirations that your avatar is going to have so that you can come up with a better marketing plan. And the last thing within this target analysis area is the behavior patterns. Study these patterns. By studying these patterns, you're going to have the ability to really make some educated decisions in terms of when to market and how to market, because by doing so, you're going to have and identify the influences that your avatar, or some of the things that you can use to influence your avatar. So identifying these patterns is going to be important. Within this, a great tool for this is using TSA. TSA has a lot of research in terms of the travel patterns, the demographics of the people that come in and out of your specific area. That's just one of the many tools you can use, but identifying the behavior patterns of your avatar is going to be very important. And next is your competitive landscape. Again, we're still looking at market research, so you want to look at the competitive landscape. So you want to identify who is your competition within that area. There's an acronym called SWOT. It's SWOT analysis, and it stands for strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats. When you do this analysis, you're going to be able to identify some gaps, conducts, behaviors of your competition. Identifying these gaps and these unmet needs is going to be important. And the reason being is, I'm going to give you an example. If you're entering a market that's oversaturated or a market that has a lot of competition, doesn't mean that you can be successful in that market. If there's a lot of competition, that means there's a lot of demand in that area. It's good to enter that market. But because there's a lot of competition, you need to stand out. You need to be better than all of them. And the way to do that is to identify what are the unmet needs, what are the opportunities available that you can identify that will help you stand out and or target these potential guests or customers that these other companies aren't doing. A good book, and one of the things that I highly recommend you read before you even start this process, is Blue Ocean Strategy. That book will help you really understand that there's more ways to skin a cat, right? That book is going to give you a point of view and some strategies on how to enter a saturated market and figure out how you can do something better, different, and even more profitable than your competition. Highly recommend you get that book. Now we're gonna talk about within this process is the planning stages, right? Now that you did the research, now let's start planning with information you just received. So the first thing in your business objective is to create a strategic goals, right? You need to have clear, measurable goals for your business. This includes what are your realistic revenue targets, your occupancy rates, what is going to be a realistic customer satisfaction goal, and what type of market shares that you want to have for this particular market. Don't know if you caught this, but I said reasonable, right? In this, when you're creating these goals, this is the one time that I will tell you to be as conservative as possible. I am one of those people that I shoot for the moon. I believe that I can do anything better than anyone else. But when you're creating a business plan, when you're in this stage, you want to be as conservative as you possibly can be. And the reason I say that is because you don't want to set unrealistic expectations and then not meet those expectations, because all that's going to do is demotivate you. It's going to make it more difficult for you to stay in the race, stay in the fight in a business, right? I am here to tell you that it's rare. I personally don't know anyone that has become very successful, has made millions of dollars in a very short amount of time. This taking years, if not decades, to get to where the Jeff Bezos of the world are, right? And I'll use him as an example. Jeff Bezos took him decades, right? He started, first of all, his first 10 years, he didn't even get a salary, right? He started selling only books, got really, really, really good at that, then he expanded. You need to be realistic with that, right? If you're thinking you're gonna start this business and within 6 months, you're gonna be making millions, I'm here to tell you that you're gonna be very disappointed. At least the great majority of you, because there could be that 1% or that 1.00% that can happen to. That's not going to be the case. So along those strategies and goals, the next one, and I just hinted on it, is making sure you have a very long-term vision. Here in the US, we're very short-sighted. I call us the microwave era, where we want stuff instant. You know, we need to think more like the Chinese, the Japanese. They have very, very long-term visions. In fact, their visions are hundreds of years, right? Developing a compelling vision for your business and your decision-making process is going to be critical. But it has to be long-term, people. It can't be within 6 months or within a year or two, I'm gonna make X millions of dollars. No. It has to be, you have to focus that and have that very long-term vision. Next, within your target marketing strategy, we're gonna segment that, right? First thing is gonna be a segmentation strategy, which is based on the different criteria in terms of travel purposes, right? You have, in travel, you have leisure travel, you have business travel. You have, within that demographics, you also have a mix of the two. You also have now what's referred to as the solo traveler. You follow my video or you watch my video in what's trending in 2024, that solo traveler is trending and trending fast. By segmenting your strategies, it'll help you in the long run, because, like, for example, if you're going to be in an area in which you can target the nomad community, families, business travelers, solo travelers, whichever one's going to be your primary, again, you should be single focused, but understanding that if you segment it and create a strategy for each segment, you can be successful. Your positioning strategy, this is where you need to determine how you want to brand and be perceived in the market. Branding is going to be very important, and you should always be branding you and your company. You shouldn't be branding, for example, Airbnb. I hear this a lot in the short-term rental industry. I hear short-term rental management or short-term rental operators as referring themselves as Airbnb host, or referring themselves as I'm in the Airbnb business. No, you're not in the Airbnb business. You are in the short-term rental business. Unless you own Airbnb, you're You're not in that business. Airbnb is a small segment of the short-term rental business. Airbnb just so happens to market themselves and brand themselves so well, and now we perceive the short-term rental business as the Airbnb business. If we could all be so lucky, we'd be billionaires, right? When you're trying to position yourself in this business, keep that in mind. You're positioning your brand, no one else's, right? You need to focus on you and your brand. Next is developing a comprehensive marketing strategy that's somewhat diverse. I understand when you're starting out, you may not have a lot of marketing dollars to market with, hence why I'm a big fan of social media. But within social media, there's a lot of ways you can market, right? There's a lot of platforms you can market in: Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Snapchat, LinkedIn. There's a lot of platforms that you can market in. I highly recommend that you try to create a mixed strategy, but one that is cohesive, or one that meshes well with each other. So for example, we spend a lot of time on Instagram, and Instagram is owned by Facebook and WhatsApp. So our strategies are within the meta world. So we focus on that. Like for example, I don't spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. I spend little of no time on Snapchat. And we do a little bit on TikTok, but only because the stuff that we upload on Instagram can be transferred into TikTok, but I don't really focus on TikTok. Why? Because my demographic is not there. Talk about that when I talked about your target audience and your strategy. Mine is not there, so I don't really spend a lot of time there, but my audience definitely spends a lot of time on Facebook and Instagram. So that's why I spend a lot of marketing time there. Next, let's talk about within this is going to be within the planning phase, is your operational plan. Now, here's where you're going to be focusing on property acquisition. And then we have two acquisitions where we're going to be focused on. The first thing is obviously identifying and acquiring the property we're going to be listing. You can do that either through investing, through finding other people's properties that you're going to manage, through rental arbitrage, my least favorite, or co-hosting. But the idea here is you need to have a strategy for this acquisition part. Once you have that, you have a secondary acquisition that you have to focus on. It's going to be your guest acquisition. So there's two types of acquisition that you have to focus on. First one, and your primary one, is always going to be identifying the property. Once you have that property, we have to fill that property with customers and our guests. That's going to be a separate strategy for that. Keep that in mind. You're going to have to come up with different strategies for acquisition for the different parts, for the two parts that you need for your short-term rental management business. The property management, the developing of standards and procedures is going to be very important. In this part is where you need to have all your processes and procedures in place, your SOPs in place. Here, you may need to seek outside help, like for example, hiring our company to help you establish your processes and procedures, help you walk you through this process, right? You can do your research on your own. You can use Google, ChatGPT can help you create your SOPs. But the idea here is that you need them, right? Don't start a company without your SOPs and the proper policies and procedures when you start your business. This needs to be in place. The next part is going to be what type of technology and infrastructure you're going to have within your business. Your tech stack, like I like to refer to it, is going to be critical. Spend time researching what type of PMS system you're going to have, what type of channel manager you're going to have if your PMS system doesn't have it, what type of bookkeeping you're going to be needing for your business. Those three components are going to be critical in order for you to run an efficient business. So really focus on your software, your channels, and what type of home technology you're going to be using, such as cameras, smart locks, noise detectors. This is why I refer to it as the tech stack, because all this, there's a lot of technology today that's going to help you be more successful, more efficient, and successful in your business. Most of the stuff that's out today didn't exist 6-7 years ago. Today, it's much easier for you, but you need to do your research and you need to understand which one you're going to be using, and then you have to learn it. You really have to have a full understanding with the capacity of each of your tech stack is going to have for you. The next, or the final thing we're going to talk about is your financial projections. First thing is that revenue forecasting. Again, as I mentioned before, you need to be very conservative in your financial forecasting. You're doing your market analysis. So for example, if the majority of the short-term rental companies out there are earning $1 million a year, they'll project that you're going to be earning $10 million. That's unrealistic. Can you do that? The possibility is there, but as I mentioned, be very conservative. If the majority are earning $1 million, then put that as your financial forecast as $1 million. But figure out what that time frame is. Then your cost analysis. Again, this is one of the components of running a business that a lot of people, when they start out, they fail to properly analyze what their cost analysis is going to be. There's a lot of hidden costs within this business. I'm gonna go over a couple that you probably weren't thinking about, you should be thinking about. I just mentioned the tech stack. Within that tech stack, everything's going to cost money, right? Whether it's your camera systems, you're gonna be paying a monthly fee for monitoring. Whether it's a noise detector system, you're gonna be paying a monthly fee for the monitoring of that. Whether it's your PMS system, whether you're gonna buy it or build it, either way, it's gonna cost you money to use a PMS system. Then it's going to be what the platforms are gonna charge you to advertise on their platforms. That's a cost. Your marketing cost, your staffing cost. There's a lot that you need to take into account. Regulatory costs. There's a lot that you need to take into account of what it costs to run a business, but you really need to learn what they are and properly put that in your financials so that you can know what it takes to operate your specific business. Now, this is a constant thing, because as you go along, it's going to change. As you acquire more properties, as you acquire more staffing, as you start to generate more revenue, you're paying more taxes. All that stuff needs to come into play. And then the last thing within that is going to be your profitability analysis. You need to figure out at what point you're going to start to see some profits. What is your ROI on everything you put into your system? So for example, marketing, and I don't know why people don't take this into account or puts this on the back burner or in the back seat. Your marketing expenses should be in the forefront, because you need customers, and the way to acquire customers is through marketing. I hate to say this to some of you guys, but some of you guys, when you're in the pinch or when you're not making money, you spend the least in marketing. People, that's when you're supposed to be spending the most. When you're not getting leads, you need to be spending to get leads. But figuring out where your ROI, or highest ROI, is going to be within your business is very important. I've already mentioned the ROI on proper marketing is priceless, right? You're going to get the biggest return on your investment is through marketing. Now, the bad part here is that it has to be proper and solid, good marketing, because if it's not, you're wasting money. Anyway, hope that information was useful. If it was, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't subscribed, hit the notification button, because that's when you're going to be alerted to when the next video is going to come out in this 7-part series. If you want a deeper dive into this and you want to talk to me directly, then buy me a coffee. Better yet, hire us to analyze and optimize your business, your short-term rental business. And if you're looking some vacation, some travel, then hit up our sponsor. Take a look at this quick video. Love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.